All right, let's dive into a really fascinating paradox. This sits right at the heart of our whole financial system. We're talking about the constant tug-of-war between a bank's need for stability and its endless push for profit. And it all boils down to one big question.
Think about it. We all get that banks run on trust, right? You put your money in and you trust that you can get it back whenever you want. So why on earth are they basically designed with these powerful built-in incentives to gamble with that trust, to risk their very survival?
You know, it all starts with this idea of social trust. Banks are essentially creating money substitutes, like your checking account balance. For any of that to work, we as a society have to believe that the bank is liquid, that it can give us our cash anytime, no questions asked. This trust isn't just important, it's the absolute bedrock of their entire existence.
Okay, but here's the twist. Even though that trust is everything, the banking system has these incredibly strong incentives pulling it in the exact opposite direction, pushing it to become less stable and less liquid. To really get why, we need to pop the hood and go inside the bank's engine room to look at the one formula that really drives all their big decisions.
And this is it, the master metric for any bank, return on equity, or ROE. This is the big one for the bank's owners, the shareholders. To put it simply, it's what the bank earns minus what it has to pay out, all divided by the amount of the owner's own money that's in the game, their equity.
So if you're running a bank and your main job is to make that ROE number as big as possible, you've really only got three main levers you can pull. Lever 1, try to earn more interest on your assets, the loans you make. Lever 2, try to pay less interest on your liabilities, like people's deposits. And lever 3, and this is the interesting one, use less of your own shareholders' money, which really just means using a lot more borrowed money.
So let's actually run a little test here. We're going to take a look at a really simple bank balance sheet and see what happens to that all-important ROE when the people in charge decide to pull each one of those three levers.
Now check this out, because the results are kind of wild. In our starting scenario, the bank's got a pretty respectable 12% ROE. Pulling that first lever, earning more on assets, that jumps it up to 32%. Not bad at all. Pulling the second one, paying less on deposits, gives a nice little boost to 21%. But just look what happens when it pulls that third lever. When it slashes its own equity and jacks up its leverage, the ROE just skyrockets to a number that almost doesn't look real.
102%. And no, that is not a typo. By running its operations with just a tiny sliver of its own cash and a whole lot of borrowed money, the bank can basically supercharge its return for shareholders. This number right here, this is the temptation. It's like a giant magnet that shapes pretty much everything a bank does.
But of course, a return like that doesn't just come out of nowhere. There's a hidden cost, a pretty big one. So how does a bank actually pull this off, earning more, paying less, and using less of its own money? And more to the point, what does all that do to the foundation of trust that we started with?
This right here shows you the trade-off perfectly. See, to earn more, banks make longer-term loans. Think 30-year mortgages. Well, that means less cash is coming back to them anytime soon. And to pay less for their funding, they rely on short-term deposits, money that can be pulled out at a moment's notice. That means they might need more cash and soon. And increasing leverage, well, that just means there's a smaller cushion to absorb any unexpected losses. Every single lever they pull for profit directly sucks the liquidity and stability right out of the bank.
The source material really just lays it out perfectly with this quote. It's a straight-up cause and effect relationship. The very things that make a bank look incredibly profitable, making long-term loans paid for with short-term debt, are the exact same things that make a bank incredibly fragile. So what does this actually look like on paper? Let's make this crystal clear by putting two banks side by side. One that plays it safe and prioritizes stability, and another that's gone all in, chasing that crazy 102% return. First up, we have the liquid bank. Take a look. Its current assets, that's cash or stuff that can become cash really fast, are at 600. That easily covers its current liabilities of 400. So if a bunch of depositors show up wanting their money, no problem. This bank is safe. It's stable. But look at its equity, a healthy 100. That means its ROE is going to be solid but not spectacular. It's chosen safety over maximum profit. And now, let's look at the illiquid bank. This bank is all about maximizing profit. It's loaded up on long-term assets, 900 of them, leaving only 100 in cash. But it paid for all that with 800 in short-term debt. And just look at that tiny little sliver of equity, only 10. The ROE here is going to be through the roof, but this bank is standing on a knife's edge.
Yeah, this really sums up the dangerous game our second bank is playing. Its short-term debts are way, way bigger than its available cash. It has practically no cushion if things go wrong. If even a small fraction of its depositors get nervous and start a run, this bank is toast. It can't pay. It would have to start selling its long-term assets for pennies on the dollar, which would just trigger a death spiral. It is fundamentally built to collapse.
And that really leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? The very business model that produces these jaw-dropping incredible returns for shareholders, tons of leverage, funding long-term bets with short-term cash, is the exact same model that makes a bank, and maybe the whole system, so incredibly fragile. So, is this a model for winning in the world of modern finance, or is it just a recipe for the next inevitable collapse?